All right, welcome back to Blue by 90. I'm Justin, joined by Tanner today. Right now, we are going to talk a little basketball later on, but right now we've got from PFF Max Chadwick joining us today to talk a little college football. Spring practice in Ann Arbor started today. I'm like, I wish it was August, honestly. I wish it was real fall practice, training camp starting, but we'll settle for spring practice, get the boys back in pads. I was in the facility today, and like they all have, so the equipment guys just like put their uniforms and stuff in their lockers for them, and they all were getting to practice. They're like, shit, we have pants like right away. We're not even just going shells and shorts today. So they are right back in it. But Max, appreciate you for joining. How you doing today, man?
I'm doing awesome, guys. I appreciate you guys are having me on. I know Dave Sofaro, who you guys know, major blue, one of the most blue guys I've ever met in my entire life. He's a legend.
He goes blue wherever he goes. I'll tell you that.
He's ultimate blue, man. It's unbelievable. Yeah. He's awesome though, and he when he brought you guys up to me, I was like, hell yeah, I would love to go on and talk some Michigan football. So I'm excited to talk to you guys.
Awesome, man. Awesome. Well, give a little background for the people on what you do at PFF and all that.
Yeah, so I'm a college football analyst at PFF right now. I'm putting out a lot of different lists, mock drafts. I had a mock draft today where it was like every college football player was eligible. What would the draft look like? And I put that out. I put Will Johnson, actually, as a top 10 pick in that draft.
Wow.
He's a stud. He's a superstar. I love him. But yeah, I'm a college football analyst for PFF and basically living the dream right now. And that is like a dream job for me. So I'm kind of just doing as much as I can with it.
Max, that just completely stole my thunder. I wanted to talk about Will Johnson. I know you guys had him graded as the highest corner man last year. But that kid, I'm glad to hear you say that because I think he's going to be a top 5 pick and is going to continue that run of Detroit DBs. You had Sauce Gardner, you had some other guys in the past that have gone to Michigan and some other schools, and he's special.
He's unbelievable, man. Dave actually pointed him out to me early in the season. It was like, hey, I knew of him as like a top 20 recruit, so I knew of him. But then Dave was like, hey, he's balling out right now. And I checked him out. He is insane, man. And he kind of reminds me a lot of it's a lofty comparison, but Patrick Surtain a little bit, where it's like a bigger corner at 6'2", who's going to lock you down in press man coverage. Like there's nothing you could do about it. Like you said, highest graded man corner in the Power 5, 91.1 grade, 2 interceptions in man coverage as well. I mean, he was an absolute superstar. I ranked him as the 3rd best corner in the country heading into next year. And for that, as a true sophomore, it's a very good corner group coming back. True sophomore, already a top 3 corner. I think he's in that mock draft. I put him as a number 1 corner in that mock draft just because I think the sky's the limit for that guy. And I really think he's, going to be the best corner in the country coming back next season as well. So it's kind of scary that he's got 2 more years.
Yeah. I was going to say he is huge. I'll say that. I'm 6'3", and he comes up to me and he is eye to eye. So he is all of 6'2" plus, which, that's really not, it's pretty rare for a cornerback, right? I think that's what sets him apart from a lot of these guys. And then that's what Michigan has been missing, I think, a lot in their secondary previously, is when you have a big dude and they obviously struggle with this at some points of last season too, but when you have a big receiver, they've been, having guys just able to go up and get the ball. Well, Will Johnson's now that guy that they just go have shadow the big receiver on the other end.
And honestly, you guys, I mean, I hate to bring up this game because I know it's probably a sore point for you guys, but that TCU game, when he was matched up against Quentin Johnston, I know he had a great game, Quentin Johnston did, but when Will Johnson was on him, he was locked down. And it wasn't until they started getting him away from Will Johnson and scheming him away, that's when Johnston really, torched you guys. But yeah. Will Johnson, I remember that one pass breakup he had was like, man, that's the number 1 receiver in the draft against a true freshman corner in the college football playoff, and the true freshman is manhandling him right now. And that to me was like, holy cow, this guy is something special.
Well, that wasn't something new for him either. The Big Ten championship, Charlie Jones for Purdue, who had a hell of a season transfer from Iowa to Purdue, was kind of torching Michigan. And then they put Will on him, and the one thing about him too is his hip fluidity, which is so important for corners to be able to break and stay with receivers. There was one where he ran the route for Charlie Jones to get an interception in the red zone. That was just an unbelievable play. But he seems to step up to the occasion. We didn't hear his name against Ohio State, which is a good thing.
Yeah.
When you're playing against Marvin Harrison Jr., Emeka Egbuka, all those different players, like to not hear his name means that he played pretty good.
For a freshman in the shoe for the first time in a number 2 versus number 3 game, the like highest rated game in a decade. Like pretty insane.
Yeah, he came on in a big way too down the stretch. Early on, it was getting figured. He got burnt in the first game against Colorado State. I don't know if it was miscommunication or just not knowing what his role was, but yeah, the kid is a freak and he could tackle too. I mean, he's a total package at corner.
The one thing I wanted to interrupt, but the one thing I wanted to say too about that TCU game is a lot of people don't know he actually did hurt his foot in the second half, and so he went out, which is I think why Quentin Johnston all of a sudden went off. And you can just all of a sudden you can tell when he's not on the field. And that's nothing against the rest of Michigan secondary. Obviously, we love those guys, but I think he is very impactful. And I'm excited and expecting to see him next year is like, all right, who's the number 1 receiver? No matter where they are in the field, he's going to be on that guy.
There is not a single player versus player matchup that I cannot wait for this upcoming season than Marvin Harrison Jr. / Emeka Egbuka, honestly, against Will Johnson. Like, that is the type of tape that you're going to turn on for Harrison, too. Like, when you turn on the tape and say, okay, I want to see him go against the best of the best, you're going to turn on the tape of Harrison against a true sophomore and Will Johnson. Like, that's how good this guy is. And I ranked Harrison and Egbuka as the number 1 and number 2 returning receivers in college football. Obviously, Michigan's got their hands filled with both of them, but Will Johnson, man, I hope they put him shadow either of those two guys, hopefully Harrison, because I think that tape is going to be unbelievable. I can't wait to watch that.
Max, would you say, and I was going to ask you this, but since we're already kind of talking about it, for me, Michigan's one weakness is the corner opposite Will Johnson. And it's a weakness because it's an unknown. They were after the kid from Ole Miss who ended up unfortunately transferring to Ohio State. Unfortunately for Michigan fans, double whammy, right? You don't get him, and he goes to your biggest rival, who their corners kind of stink. So if they can get some help there, that's less than ideal. But like, is that the one thing that you're looking at with this roster as an unknown, where it's if they can find a guy, and they've got some guys who are becoming true sophomores and are coming off injury that are highly promising, but is that the one thing you're looking for in Michigan in 23 if they're going to make that next level run again and get beyond just making it to the playoffs? It's going to be that extra that second corner.
Yeah, that's probably the spot that I was looking at. And we mentioned, you look at Ohio State, it's like, okay, Will Johnson's got one of those two guys, but man, you got another guy in Emeka Egbuka. And you know what? Emeka Egbuka plays a lot in the slot, and a lot of the best receivers in college football now play in the slot. Mike Sainristil is still a guy I love in that slot. I think he's a phenomenal player. He barely missed the top 10 returning corners list for me. Like, that's how, and it's hard for a slot. I only had one slot corner in it, and that was Javon Bullard from Georgia. And that's how good you have to be. And I think Mike Sainristil is a phenomenal slot corner. I love Rod Moore at safety too. I think he's a stud.
He's also sorry to butt in there again, but I look at Rod Moore and Mikey Sainristil, super undersized, super under recruited, and it's like it's just two guys that you would never expect to be at the top of those lists if you looked at them. Obviously not Mikey Sainristil because he started out on the other side of the ball, but like even him switching over, like you would never expect them to even be in that conversation.
No. Yeah, Will Johnson's not a surprise. It's like, yeah, he's a top 20 recruit. Yeah, you'd be like, yeah, he should have been a top 5 recruit.
Right.
But yeah, it's still like not a surprise. Like, yeah, Sainristil came over from the offensive side of the ball. Rod Moore, not a very big safety at all, but yet they're balling out in this Michigan defense. But that outside corner spot opposite Will Johnson, for sure, that is definitely one of the few question marks I would say you guys have heading into next season.
I want it to be known before anybody hops in the comments, I did not forget about Mike Sainristil, but his role is a little different than the one that I'm referring to, that other outside corner who's going to be, playing more towards the field opposite Will Johnson. So Michigan fans, I know Mike Sainristil's a stud. I've been on that hype train for a minute. He's a dog. I'm glad to hear that he's kind of on that fringe because he could play himself into maybe a second day pick with a really, really good fifth year.
Oh, for sure. And something I love about his game, and obviously a lot of slot corners need this, but he's one of the best at it. He's a great coverage guy for sure. He is a hard-nosed run defender. He's not like your typical DB that's afraid to stick his nose in there. Like Mike Sainristil is a guy that I personally would be afraid running against. He's one of the best run defending corners, I think, in the country. So he's a guy that could do it all. He has some good pass rushing snaps for you guys this past year too. Like, he's a very versatile corner. And so, like I said, I think he's a top 2 to 3 slot corner in the country heading into next year.
Well, all right. Before we get to some other returners that are on your list, I want to ask you one thing. How much does looking cool affect your list? Because I do think part of Will Johnson's game is just looking fresh as fuck, honestly.
He does look fresh as fuck. I'm not going to lie. Listen, I'm gonna sit here and say, oh, it's all about the numbers and tape for me as a PFF guy. I'd be lying if Kool-Aid McKinstry's name didn't play a little bit of a part in me putting him number one. He was phenomenal. I think he deserves a number one ranking. But yeah, I think looking cool is definitely something that Will Johnson has, and it helps him, man. When you watch the tape and you see that guy, you're like, that's PS2. PS2, one of the coolest corners in the league. Yeah. That's PS2 right there, I think, whenever I watch Will Johnson.
He's got the look of it for sure. So, Tanner, you got something?
Yeah, no, I think with Will too, it's the eye test. He looks like an NFL corner at 19 years old. The way, like when you watch him in warmups, the way he flips his hips, and it's such a weird thing. My wife always laughs. Last year when they were talking about Aiden Hutchinson at number 2 to the Lions on draft night, they were talking about hand fighting and hand slapping, and she thought it was the funniest thing ever. So some of the terms we use are hilarious, but like the ability for him to be able to kind of stay with the receiver at the turn of a dime and be able to, flip his hips in whatever direction he needs to go. Like he does just look like an NFL corner, and it's that length and it's that athleticism, but he's also got the knowledge. His dad played at Michigan. I mean, he's the total package. It's honestly, I thought he'd be a stud, but I didn't think we'd be talking about him in this light going into his second year.
Yeah. That's the thing, man. Is like you mentioned the fluidity. I'm glad you brought that up because it's like, yeah, it's insane for a true sophomore. 1. 2, it's insane for a 6'2" corner. Like 6'2" corners usually, unless they're superstars like PS2 and Will Johnson, they're kind of clunky out there sometimes.
Right.
And Will Johnson is not like that. You watch the tape from the high up angle on the all 22, and you're like, oh, that's probably like a 5'10" corner with how fluid he's moving. And then you look up, how big he is, and you're like, holy crap, this guy's 6'2" and he's a true freshman. So yeah, I know this is kind of turned into the Will Johnson show, but he deserves it, man. This guy is a freaking stud. I love him.
We're 12 minutes in and we've talked about one guy. I love it. All right, let's flip to the offensive side of the ball for a minute. Who else? I have a feeling there may be a couple guys, at least one guy in the backfield that we're going to talk about here.
Yeah. So Blake Corum, dude, he's the man. And I actually was like the biggest Blake Corum supporter, I would say, this past year, because I wrote an article saying, he should have won the Heisman Trophy. And I believe that. I think he should have won the Heisman Trophy. I think if you're saying who's the best player in college football, Blake Corum is the best player in college football. To me, that's what it was. He had a 96.2 grade last year. Highest we've ever given out to a Power 5 player.
Now, okay, I've seen that like circle. I know Dave and you guys have put that out on your socials for sure. Dave, I love Dave when he's putting out Michigan stuff because I just know it's propaganda, but I eat it up anyways. But I want to like ask you, like, okay, when you say he's the highest rated and it comes out as that 96, what all goes into that? Like what makes him the best running back in college football and the best grade that you guys have ever given?
It's interesting because I think there's an argument to be made that, your offensive line was so ridiculously good. And they're back-to-back Joe Moore Award winners for a reason. But at the same time, they're making holes. But Blake Corum's vision to me is ridiculous, man. It's like this guy is never getting tackled behind the line of scrimmage. And he's terrific at breaking tackles as well. So, listen, I thought he's the best player in the country. In terms of our wins above average metric, which we try to determine the value, he was actually more valuable than all of the Heisman finalist quarterbacks, which is shocking for a quarterback, which is usually the most valuable. Blake Corum was up there. So I think it's tough when it's like people are making the argument like, oh, he's not that great because Donovan Edwards, ran for 200 yards a game when Corum was hurt. It's like, no, that just means Donovan Edwards is also a superstar. Like, we don't have to think about this in a different way. The offensive line is terrific. I'm not going to deny that. But Blake Corum, I thought, was the best player in college football. And again, I would have given him the stiff arm trophy. It's the second time in a row I would have given a Michigan guy a stiff arm trophy. I thought you guys got stiffed last year when Aiden Hutchinson didn't win it. And I was like, that's the best player in college football. So
Yeah.
listen, I told you guys before, I'm a Penn State fan. Michigan fans have kind of been behind me, and I'm like, this is weird to me, defending you guys to this end. I have to be objective in this job, unfortunately, and I think Corum and Hutchinson both were wrong with Heisman.
Yeah, the thing is that the offensive line has told me in private, and they've said it publicly, like Blake makes us look really good even when we suck. He's like, they literally have said it. They're like, we go and look at the film and we miss assignments, and Blake still, and this is what Haskins did in 2021 as well, is they still get positive yardage. Blake, I mean, I'll go back to that. I believe it was in the Indiana game where there's 5 guys around him and he goes for what should have been a touchdown. Mm-hmm. And it's like, those are the runs that he had. And I've said this on the pod before, but like, I thought the TCU game was the first time we really felt like we missed Blake Corum, because we missed it. We missed that vision that you were talking about. They had that second linebacker in that 3-3-5, and it was Donovan Edwards trying to go 100 miles an hour head first, and it wasn't working. And Blake would have, found the hole, and he'll find the smallest little hole. And even when the play's blown up, he'll at least get 3-4 yards. And so that's why, honestly, it's felt like the success for Michigan in 2021 and 2022 was based on Hassan Haskins and Blake Corum both never getting negative rushes, because they never played behind the sticks.
Yeah, I mean, how many times in that TCU game was it 2nd and 12 or 3rd and 14? Michigan does not operate well when they are behind the sticks, and Blake Corum's biggest asset outside, because he does everything so well. The only thing that I think he might lack, which is crazy to say because as a sophomore I thought he had it, but he put on probably 10 pounds. He doesn't have that breakaway top end speed anymore necessarily. I mean, he can still take it to the house, but there's been some times where he got caught. But I think his biggest asset is being able to fall forward 3 or 4 yards, which is the funniest thing, because going into 2022, Max, all we were saying as Michigan fans, like, how are we going to get 3rd and 4? Yeah. How are we going to get 3rd and 2? We could just give it to Haskins and he would fall forward. And that's what Corum does now.
We're so worried, but it's so funny too, because he's like, he's so little that he just like dives forward, and it's like, I don't know, it's the weirdest thing. It has to be so frustrating for a linebacker or a D lineman, because he just like squeezes by you.
Yeah, and honestly, man, I mean, and you guys know better than me, especially being around the program. He seems like the best guy in the world. Like, this guy just seems like the best. I saw, right after he got hurt, he was doing the Thanksgiving drive, delivering turkeys. I'm like, dude, you're on a bum knee right now. Like, what are you doing? He looks like a terrific guy. I think it rules that he's returning next year. I think that's an awesome factor. I think he's currently my Heisman pick for next year, because I thought he got robbed this year. But man, it's a special backfield you guys have next year in Corum and Edwards.
All right, we got to talk about JJ. I thought he obviously had a coming out party in 2022 as a whole, but I thought the second half of the year he really came into his own. I think there are a lot of people out there that are still unsure of what the top tier JJ McCarthy is. Is it Heisman level? Is it like above average QB? Is it average QB? What are you seeing?
I think it's close to Heisman level. The only problem is you guys have 2 Heisman candidates next to him, and Corum and Edwards. That it's like, or not anymore, probably with Edwards, with Corum coming back. But like, man, it's going to be tough, because I think Harbaugh is going to emphasize the running game once again this year, and as he should, honestly, especially the offensive line. I think is still really good coming back. JJ I like a lot though, and I think some people are a little too harsh on him. I also think some people are a little too high on him. I think he's a very good college quarterback. I had him 8th in my top 10 returning quarterbacks in college football. He's terrific outside of structure, man. I saw one, Fran Tarkenton actually tweeted about him, and I'm not going to pretend like I watched Fran Tarkenton when I was a kid, but I watched the highlights as a Steelers fan, and I'm like, okay, like that, I kind of see a little bit of that. It's like a little bit of a smaller quarterback just running around back there. Outside of structure, he's one of the best in the country. He had 5 passing touchdowns outside of the original play design. That was tied with Drake May and only trailed Caleb Williams and Bryce Young. So, like, when the play breaks down, JJ McCarthy is one of the best in college football. It's just, he's got some plays on there where you're like, man, what were you thinking there, JJ? And I think those definitely helped, came away in the second half of the season, but it even showed up a little bit in that TCU game. The 2 pick sixes come to mind there, and it was like, man, you gotta be better than that, especially when Edwards is not having the game. Quorum is not there. That's when you need your 5-star quarterback in JJ McCarthy to step up and play like it. And I don't think he hasn't been bad. Again, he's a top 10 returning quarterback in the country. I just don't think he's the elite of the elite.
I think that's a pretty good analysis there, because I see the TCU game is like almost the nutshell of what JJ McCarthy was last year. You saw the worst of him and you saw the best of him all at once. And you can see like what people see in him. That's why he's the 5-star, right? Is like, holy shit, he can run, he can throw, he can do it on the move, all of that stuff. But then you still see, and I think I give him a little bit of a pass because he's still 19, or he was during that game. And so I think it's, he was still super inexperienced, and that was the biggest Michigan game in the past decade plus, right? So like for a 19-year-old, for the game to be on his shoulders because of what you said, your Heisman finalist out, your Donovan Edwards not having the best game, like I'll give him a little bit of a pass. But ultimately at the end of the day, if you want to be the guy, you got to be the guy sometimes as well.
I have some thoughts.
All right, let's go.
So here's the thing about the TCU game. Obviously, have the 2 pick sixes, but the thing that is so frustrating, and we have a group chat of all the Blue by 90 folks, and we go back and forth about this. The game plan was not great. Yeah. TCU, you don't beat TCU by going straight at them, right? They run a 3-3-5. You think, oh, they're soft. No. You get out to the edges and you put them in conflict like Kansas State did. That's how Kansas State beat them. The moment in the third quarter when they finally let J.J. McCarthy run, that offense opened up. Yeah. And that's what I think we expected to see. And the fact that he had the 2 pick sixes, obviously those are bad. We get that. But he had that team. He had the ball with like 40 seconds left. I mean, he had to go 80 yards, and obviously they didn't. They had the targeting not get called and all, it was a 4th down play and all that. But some of the plays that kid made in that game were unbelievable. The ball to Roman Wilson was a tad underthrown, which is why he didn't land in the end zone, but it was still a terrible call. He had a throw to Ronnie Bell. I think Ronnie Bell tried to stretch out to the 1, but it was on a deep post that was on the money. And the thing that I don't know if this is, super widespread, but he hurt his shoulder in the offseason. Max, I'm sure you probably are aware of that. Just we're all college football nerds. But for the, general public, he hurt his shoulder in the offseason. He didn't play in spring ball, and he didn't throw with his guys until August. And we all know how important those reps are in spring, over the summer. So I don't think you're wrong necessarily, but I do think his ceiling is maybe higher just because of the fact that he's coming into this year with a fully healthy offseason. He's going to get those 15 practices in spring camp. He's going to have summer and he's going to have fall, and he's going to have a year of experience under his belt as the starter. So I think he is a first-round pick ceiling, but he has to get there.
I completely agree with that. I think that's a great point, is that, like you mentioned, he was hurt before. And it's like, not only is he hurt before, which hurts, him going into the season, he's a new quarterback. It's not like he's a returning starter for Michigan. It just to like show how roller coaster he was. It's like, yeah, he threw 2 pick sixes. In any other quarterback's game, 2 pick sixes in a playoff game, you're like, yeah, that guy lost the game for them. No, I actually still think J.J. McCarthy had a pretty damn good game against TCU, which is just like, man, you take away those, 2 to 3 plays, you're like, what the hell are you looking at?
Right.
This guy could be a top quarterback in college football. And I think that Jim Harbaugh, who I think is a terrific quarterback whisperer, he's probably going to, with a full offseason with JJ as a starter, because you got to remember, like, Cade McNamara was battling him all last year too. So it wasn't like JJ was getting all the first team reps. Correct. I tend to think, hey, man, JJ is a guy that, I put 8th in my list. He could be a lot higher than that. He certainly has a talent to be a lot higher than that.
And also, I never thought about this until just now, but like, let's look at the other quarterbacks that were in the college football playoff. It is Stetson Bennett, who's 28. It's Max Duggan, who is very, he was he a senior or 5th year?
He was like a redshirt junior, I think. So
redshirt junior.
So he was he had another year.
Okay. And then you have CJ Stroud, who was he's in his 3rd year. And so like JJ was still playing really well alongside all of those other QBs who are all way more experienced than him. I mean, let's look at the average experience of all 3 of those QBs is pretty high, So that's where I don't want to say give him a pass, but like I think there's a little bit of wiggle room there when you can't quite put them in the same category as those guys. Now, if if JJ McCarthy is a junior or a senior and he's making those mistakes in a big game like that, then we'll have some conversations.
And honestly, I wouldn't be surprised. I still think you guys are going to be heavily reliant on the run game, so maybe we won't see him fully unlocked. I wouldn't be surprised if, say, Corum and Edwards declare for the draft, which I think is a possibility, even with Edwards being the number 2 back. I wouldn't be surprised if Harbaugh goes to JJ and goes, hey, man, right now you're maybe a day 2 pick, maybe early day 3 because you just didn't do much for this offense. This is your show next year. You're the guy next year in this offense. I wouldn't be surprised if he's a guy that comes back for the 2024 season. I know it's kind of looking ahead way too far ahead, but maybe if JJ's not a first-round pick like you guys say he could be, and I think he could be too, maybe if he's not that, he might say, hey, you know what? Now it's my show. Now I could show, hey, I can lead this team to the promised land. And I don't know, maybe he's a guy that I have to put on my top 10 returning quarterbacks for next season as well.
Yeah, go ahead, Tanner.
I was going to say, I think, Roman Wilson coming back is going to be huge. I thought he had a big TCU game. He didn't make many big plays in the Ohio State game, but on that touchdown that JJ threw off his back foot to Cornelius Johnson, if you've seen the film, Roman's wide open. He burnt that corner off the line, and I think Roman really played extremely well in that TCU game. So I think Roman Wilson as a senior, I think you have some younger guys coming through the program. Darius Clemens was a big-time recruit who's coming into his true sophomore year. Tyler Morris is a really good slot guy who is, I think, a top 200 recruit. So I think the receiving room might actually be better. Like, there were some opportunities that were missed by the receivers, and you have Cornelius Johnson coming back for his 5th year. Like, there's a lot of playmakers that I think maybe necessarily didn't step up last year. We had some guys, Andrel Anthony transfers to Oklahoma, but he, had some opportunities that he missed to make big plays. So I'm hoping that the offense is going to be better because you have such a dynamic running back room, but you also have potentially a higher ceiling for the receiving group, which is crazy to say because last year everyone thought that was the strength. They kind of struggled a little bit in 22.
Absolutely. There's one guy, it's pretty funny. I put up I did my top 10 returning tight ends list too. And Michigan fans came at me for no Colston Loveland. And people love that guy. And I was talking to Dave about it and I'm like, man, I couldn't really put him on the list because he had 200 yards. But Dave's like, dude, this guy is going to be a freaking stud. And everyone that I've talked to, I'm sure you guys are going to hopefully tell me too, but everyone I've talked to around the Michigan program is like, yeah, look, the stats aren't there yet. This guy's going to be a superstar. And, he's the guy that I'm very excited to see next year in the Michigan offense.
He definitely, he was incredibly raw with zero experience, and he had no idea he was going to play this year whatsoever, and so I think that, again, with a full off season of him and JJ getting a connection going, I'm really excited to see that. And then to go back to your piece about JJ, he has made it not clear, but he's said some things that he might stay for that senior year. And if you look at this 2024 draft class, you got Caleb Williams, Drake May, Shadur Sanders, Jaden Daniels, Quinn Ewers, it's deep. And so I would not be shocked either, Max, if JJ is back after next season too.
In that mock draft I put out where everyone was eligible, the first 2 picks were Caleb Williams and Drake May. That's just how good those two are. And it's I would be Quinn Ewers has the potential. He did not play well this year as a starter for Texas, but he's got the potential to maybe join them. But right now, it's those two and everyone else is kind of the argument right now. So yeah, I can see that JJ being it's, again, this is ridiculous to be talking about the 2025 draft, but it's something I did already. But there wasn't a true freshman quarterback like Caleb Williams was in his Oklahoma year. We were like, that's the guy right there. You could tell immediately he was the guy. There really wasn't a true, Cade Klubnik I liked, but he was still raw. There hasn't been a true freshman quarterback that's impressed me enough to be like, oh, that's the 2025 guy right there. Where I knew Caleb Williams was that guy. You knew Trevor Lawrence was that guy too. So I don't know. Again, it's way too early for 2025 talk, but JJ McCarthy could look at that and be like, oh, you know what? I could be the guy then for 2024 or 2025.
Yeah, Max, and kind of rounding out the offense, I've got a question for you. I don't know how involved you are in individual analysis and the rating. What was PFF's logic to rank Drake Nugent above Olu Oluwatimi, who won the Outland, who won the Remington, who I understand Olu's not maybe as athletically gifted, so he probably won't be drafted as high in the NFL. But as far as college centers go, for Michigan, the best center that they've had since David Bulk, who won the Remington in 2011. Like, what are your thoughts, and maybe give some insight into where that ranking came from? Because if he's better than Olu, I'm jumping for joy.
Something I always want to emphasize at any podcast I go on is like the PFF grades, as much as people think they're the end all be all, they're not the end all be all. And that's speaking as a guy who's from PFF. So we have many other stats out there. I think Olu is better than his grade indicated. I thought he was easily one of the best centers in college football. I don't know if I would have given him the Outland Trophy. I think Joe Alls, the Notre Dame tackle, was phenomenal too. But Olu I was fine with it when he won that award. But you mentioned Drake Nugent. I put out, the top 10 interior line list. He was my number one center, and it was like that's so it's kind of unfair. Again, I'm a Penn State fan. It's unfair when it's like, okay, A gap, B gap football. You got Olu blocking for Blake Corum and Donovan Edwards. Okay, all right, Corum and Edwards come back, but at least Olu's gone. And all of a sudden they get the top center in the country and Drake Nugent.
And both the guards back too.
And add like 4 pieces for depth on the O line. It's going to be another pretty damn good O line in Ann Arbor.
Yeah, exactly.
It's pretty crazy, honestly.
With it, man.
It's pretty crazy. All right, and who else on the defensive side of the ball then do you have your eye on? I know they've got to replace a decent amount on that D line, but Chris Jenkins coming back, I think, is a huge piece. And then, Junior Colson, who was a freshman All-American, I think is a big piece as well.
Yeah, I was just going to mention Chris Jenkins. He was one of my top 5 D tackles coming back. He's an awesome run stuffer, like an amazing run stuffer. His 31 run defense stops were tied for the most in the nation among all interior defensive linemen. He was phenomenal in the middle of Michigan's defense this year. So he's a guy I love.
To add to him too, I was told by an NFL agent that if he would have went this year, he would have been first off the board for Michigan. Which is like, obviously NIL was a factor, but still it's, he's come out and said his mom would have killed him if he didn't get his degree, whether that's true or not. I do think he's a mama's boy from talking to him. Really good kid, but for Michigan to get him back there is pretty awesome.
He is phenomenal. You mentioned Junior Colson. He's a guy that in my top 10 returning linebackers, I hated leaving him off. Like there were so many great linebackers coming back. Actually, like that's one of the deepest positions I think coming back to college is linebacker. Leaving him off hurt me. Not only him, I love Michael Barrett, dude. Michael Barrett is a stud.
Yeah.
He's one of the most underrated players for Michigan, and he was a guy that like with Colson. I don't want to, I don't know how I rank the top 15, but like they would be in that top 15, and they would probably be near that top 10. Both of them were like one of my final cuts for this list. So even though I didn't put either of them in my top 10 returning linebackers, that doesn't mean I don't think Michigan has one of the best linebacking corps in the country heading into next year with those two, because I think they do. And Michael Barrett, Junior Colson gets all the love and deservedly so. Michael Barrett, I think, is a stud that nobody talks about.
He's in the Mike Sainer still Rod Moore conversation, right? Of like undersized, underrated. And he was so important for Michigan to run that defense because Junior is not that guy. He's not outspoken, but Mike's actually pretty quiet too, but he helped a ton. And then the crazy thing is you didn't have Nakai Hill-Green all year long, who was a stud with Junior in 2021. And you add Ernest Hausman. So adding Ernie and it's like, my God, the depth at the linebacker position is crazy as well.
Yeah, dude, it's unfair. We talked before where it was like, okay, Ohio State loses Stroud, they lose a couple other guys, especially on the O-line, and then you guys lose a lot of guys, and I'm like, I thought you guys were going to lose a lot of guys, and then now it's just like, I thought Penn State maybe could steal the Big Ten next year with a new quarterback and a lot of superstar returning players, but Michigan's roster top to bottom, man. Like I put Georgia as the number 1 team in the country heading into next year. My way too early top 25, but you can make a serious case that roster-wise, I don't know if there's a better one than Michigan. Like there's so few question marks on this Michigan team heading into next year. You have to put Georgia number 1 because of the back-to-back champs. Like you can't put them any lower.
And the schedule.
Yeah. Oh my God.
People talk shit on Michigan's schedule, but come on, let's talk about Georgia.
They'll sleepwalk to the playoff next year.
Yeah.
But it's just like when you look at the roster, though, then it's like, man, Michigan might have them beat roster-wise, and I think it's close. But I think the gap between Georgia and Michigan is a lot closer than everyone else thinks. So,
yeah, and they have, we talked about Ernest Hausman, who I think I don't know if you guys did rankings for the transfer portal, but I know 24/7 had him initially as the number one player in the portal in 2022, and then I think he maybe slid a little bit as guys entered. But I know 24/7 is extremely high on him. They also got Josiah Stewart, who I know you guys loved in his true freshman year. He was the guy that I believe is friends with Mike Sanders still. They're both from the New England area, and that's kind of how he was initially recruited by Don Brown, decided to go to Coastal Carolina, has a great first couple of years, and now he's coming to Michigan. Do you have any thoughts on him and maybe his plug-and-play ability on the defensive line?
It's funny that you mentioned him because he was a guy that I completely forgot about until right now. And it was like, that's another guy where I'm like, dude, they're loaded. Yeah, he was a guy that I loved. I mean, we put out transfer portal rankings. He was one of our top edge defenders in the transfer portal. And he's just a guy that I think will contribute both as a really good run defender and a really good pass rusher. Of course, the Coastal Carolina, going from the Sun Belt to the Big Ten, big jump, but we've seen other guys do it before. And I think he's a guy that has the talent to at least contribute in the Big Ten. Will he be as dominant as he was at Coastal Carolina? No, of course not. But I still think he'll be a really, really good edge defender for you guys and a guy that I could see potentially starting on your defense next year, or at least being one of your top edge defenders in the rotation. And I completely forgot about him until right now, and it's kind of terrifying thinking that they got Josiah Stewart too. I mean, yeah, he was, his pass rushing grade and his pressures were both top 20 among Group of 5 edge defenders this year. So, you have Aiden Hutchinson, David Ajabo, Kwity Paye. I don't think Josiah Stewart will be near those guys, but I still think he'll be a really, really solid contributor for you guys next year.
We haven't even talked about Mason Graham. I mean, that's how deep this entire team is. We haven't talked about Mason Graham. We haven't talked about Jalen Harrell. I mean, we haven't talked about Derek Moore, Kenneth Grant, who are rising sophomores who are going to be ball players. I mean, it's truly astonishing from where this program was in 2020 to where it is now, the complete overhaul and how loaded they are. I think the only question mark that I really have is that corner.
Yep.
And I guess we'll see how we do replacing Jake Moody and Brad Robbins at kicker and punter. Otherwise, I'm kind of chilling.
I hate you guys right now. And we're talking about the kicker and the punter. Although Moody was a stud when I was in the NFL. It's funny that we went almost 40 minutes and didn't mention Mason Graham, and I think that guy could be potentially an All-American next year. Like that, it's just like you go 40 minutes and usually you say, a potential All-American is one of the first guys to bring up for a team. Mason Graham is just another guy in that defense, man. It's just he's a guy again. I barely left off my list. Dave actually was pretty mad at me when I left off the top 10 tackles list. It was pretty funny. He sent me a video of him, I think, dunking a basketball. And it's like, dude, what the hell is that, man? Like, what kind of freak athlete is that?
Dude, I was with him the other day, and he's like, here's the thing. He's not, fit. He's not trim. If you look at him, you would be like, this is the guy that's dunking a basketball. But I do think he's somehow grown 3 inches in the last 3 months, because I don't remember him being that tall, but he's 6'2" now. And I don't know. It's crazy to me that, like you said, we almost forgot about him until almost 40 minutes in here. But I want to end it here with is it crazy to say that Michigan has the best chance in the next 3 years of taking over the Big Ten the same way Ohio State had done for the past decade?
Dude, it seems like you guys have, and it's dangerous to say this, and I don't want to jinx you guys, but it seems like you have their number right now. And it's kind of insane that we've kind of switched so much. And I don't know, Ryan Day, if he loses again to Michigan,
he's gone.
It's going to be tough. And maybe Ohio State poaches from another Big Ten school in Wisconsin, get Luke Fickell back there, because I don't know, man. But you mentioned the future, and I know we said J.J. McCarthy could be the quarterback even next year. I mean, dude, you guys are in the running for Jaden Davis, who's a top quarterback recruit in 2024. The number one quarterback in 2025, Bryce Underwood, seems to be a Michigan lean right now. Again, it sounds creepy when we're talking about high school sophomores and where they might be going to college, but it's that's the nature of the game, man. And Michigan is in the running for both those guys, and it's I mean, of course, you guys are going to always be a run-heavy team with Jim Harbaugh, but you guys are going to have J.J. McCarthy maybe for one at least, or maybe 2 years, and then maybe Jaden Davis, and then maybe Bryce Underwood. It's going to be tough, and especially with Ohio State losing Dylan Raiola, who's the number one guy in 2024, who I think is fantastic. losing him is tough. And I'm looking at it right now. I'm like, man, Michigan has a couple quarterback recruits that they're not committed yet. I'm not saying they're committed to Michigan, but right now it seems to be leaning Michigan for both those guys. And yeah, they could start a little dynasty in the Big Ten a little bit.
Hey, man, Max, we appreciate you coming on. Tell the people where they can follow all your stuff at.
Yeah, of course. You can follow me Twitter, @Chad_Maxwick. I do a little bit of TikTok too, @Maxwick. Of course, PFF.com, putting out articles. Offseason, I think, is like 3 times a week, 4 times a week now I'm aiming for. So, yeah, a lot of cool stuff I got planned for the offseason. But like you guys said before, I mean, I cannot freaking wait for August, man. The national championship ended, and I was immediately like, oh, shit, we got some months. We got some months ahead of us now, and XFL is just not really filling that void like I thought it would. So, yeah, I'm definitely excited to get my heart broken by Penn State when we play with you guys again this year.
Love it. Well, yeah, we're gonna have to, like, right now for the next month, we're just like straining for any spring football info and news that comes out. Like who's that freshman that made a sick catch today? Like who's gonna be that guy? How far could JJ throw the ball today?
Yep.
So that's where we're at. But hey, you know what? August and September will be here soon enough, and we'll be talking about it all. But hey, man, we appreciate you coming on. Yeah, go follow Max and check out all the stuff at PFF. All right. Thank you to Max Chadwick for coming on and talking to us for probably a little too long about Michigan, but there are just too many people to talk about. We were 40 minutes into it and forgot about Mason Graham. So good conversation with him, though. Go check him out. Jack is on with Tanner and I now to talk a little hoops. Unfortunately, we'll start off on a bad note here. The women's team just dropped a home one to Ohio State. Man, that's tough. 27 turnovers, you said?
Yeah, that's what the graphic showed on the screen, and they had 27 against them last time they played them. Ohio State's just got a really good full court press they run, and Michigan was just struggling with it, man.
You mean
crazy.
You mean Michigan can struggle against Ohio State when they get in your face and play extremely aggressive on defense? That's crazy.
That is true.
I've never heard of that before.
That is true. Usually when they press you, you just run right by them.
Yeah, I don't.
That's much better outdoor team. Michigan is.
Yeah.
Not in hockey, unfortunately.
Yeah,
we can talk about that too.
That's tough.
No, but it gives you an opportunity to make the joke that they finally beat Michigan in a football stadium. So, like, when you win the football games, it's like you can do whatever you want. You can say whatever you want.
It's so true, though. Like, it's literally whatever happens, you just go back to 45-23.
Absolutely. Which is, I would get super annoyed when they would do that. But now that the tables have turned, it's like, that's kind of awesome. Yeah. Nothing they can say. Like,
also, I just loved you saying, like, they finally beat us in a football.
It had been a while, man. It had been pre-COVID.
2012 to 2021 never happened.
I mean, it had been since 2019. We're talking pre-COVID, man.
I mean, that's true.
Yeah, this is a whole new decade.
Pre-vid, bro. Like,
I live in the current decade that we're in. I don't ever.
Yeah, that's
back.
Yeah. If you just go based on 2021 to present and just like make it fit your narrative, we could just ride that all day long. That's what some fan bases do. I mean, they cut certain time frames, and that's fine.
Yeah, I agree. I do live in the past decade for basketball, though.
That's true.
So, shout out to the 2013 team coming to Ann Arbor. Franz Wagner was at the women's game. Like, how about just, hey, you have like 3 days off of your NBA schedule, and you're going to spend it all in Ann Arbor in February.
And he lives in Florida. Like, solid recruiting pitch. Solid recruiting pitch.
Yeah.
Like, he could go to Disney. It's like, no, I'm going to Ann Arbor. That's the most magical place on earth, truly.
Yeah, that's true. But Saturday night, I got to give it up to the Maze Rage and everybody in Chrysler. That felt like it was like back in the Beeline days of like awesome basketball in Ann Arbor.
Dude, yeah, you could hear the crowd going crazy. Even for got to give props to the Sparty fans that showed up. It almost sounded like a neutral site game. Obviously, Michigan was a little bit louder, but the energy throughout the game was incredible. Like that, like you said, it was a fun, like Beeline era type game that happened.
I mean,
and they closed it out in the end. It's beautiful.
It felt like those like those Michigan State matchups with like, Izzo and Beeline, I thought were some of the best college basketball games I've ever watched. And they were always like top 15 games for like big time movement in the Big Ten Conference standings and everything. And so it felt like that, and it was just awesome. Saturday night, can we please have more Saturday night 8 p.m. games? I mean, it's like, holy shit.
Yeah, give me Friday and Saturday night games. We talked about it last podcast we were on, man. Let me go to Ann Arbor. Let me get some food, go to some bars, whatever. Let's do that instead of Wednesday night tip-offs at 9:00. Like, what? Who needs that?
Or
Friday night hoops
Sunday
nice.
1 p.m. game.
Yeah, absolutely. Saturday was awesome, man. Obviously, I don't know how much we're going to talk about the unspeakable tragedy that happened to Michigan State and their campus last week, and it really kind of changed my tone and my mood. I have a lot of Michigan State friends. If anyone, is kind of, sees me on Twitter, we go back and forth, but I appreciate a lot of those guys. And so Saturday, weirdly enough, it was kind of a weird one. I don't know how you guys felt going in, but I was honestly pretty okay with how back and forth the game was. I was glad that it was an extremely competitive game. I was really glad to see the two fan bases come together. For the most part, I think there was some bickering on Twitter, as there always is, but it was one of those games where I was extremely happy to win it. But, some things are bigger than sports, like not trying to be funny. And like, it was really cool to see, Michigan do all the things that they did, because they didn't have to do it, right? But it was cool to see. And then to still be able to kind of have the crowd get fired up and the teams go battle it was like maybe even all the sweeter, right? Like, of all the pregame festivities, I would have been really bummed if Michigan State was just like, and rightfully so, if they were just like, I'm just not in it, man. Like, my heart's not in it. And so the fact that both teams battled their ass off just like made it all the sweeter that Michigan was able to get the win, and just a great basketball game. I mean, these guys were just making buckets back and forth. I mean, the first half was like lightning fast, up and down the court, hitting threes, hitting twos, hitting deep jumpers, some crazy dunks. Like, it was an awesome basketball game. I was so happy to see that after everything that had transpired the week prior.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly, like, I don't want to, not that I'm playing that Michigan's the victim here at all, but I felt like Michigan was in a kind of an awkward situation, right? Like, you honor the other team, and it's like, it's kind of weird if you win that game, right? I guess a little bit, but it did feel like it was like the best outcome, that it was back and forth and battle. And then obviously as a Michigan fan, you're happy that they won. But I mean, ultimately at the end of the day, I hope that game for Michigan State fans was like, and Michigan State students specifically, was like a little bit of a 2-hour escape from everything that they've had to go through for the past week. I feel like that's what sports are for, in my opinion. We all put, some of us live it more than others, that's for sure. But I think it's an escape from the real world a lot of times. So I hope that Michigan State fans and students were able to go through that. I mean, the one thing that I always go back to is like, I think a lot of us just kind of have gone on with our lives since last week. But there are a lot of students and the families of those victims that, like, I mean, they're going to go through it forever, right? And so I want to keep those people in our thoughts throughout this, and make sure that we do keep supporting even beyond just this one game and everything like that. So I would say keep that in mind when you're on social media and when you're dealing with Michigan State fans. I know that we've had some back and forth even since then about the whatever happened in that game, but I just want to put the rivalry aside for 2 seconds, and let's be people, let's be human beings. But let's move on to this basketball team now. With what the heck are they going to do going forward? Is it, I don't know. Are they reeling us back in to let us down one more time, or where are we at?
They're hot again.
They're hot. One game.
We're on a winning streak. We're trying to find
game.
what the schedule is coming up. So we got at Wisconsin. Nope. We got at Rutgers. Wisconsin at home. At Illinois. At Indiana. I don't have high hopes.
Huge opportunities, though.
You can see it as opportunity or tough schedule. I think
it's both, right?
You have to look at it as opportunity.
I mean, I think you got to get, if you want to get in as an at-large, you got to get 3 out of 4 and then maybe win 1 or 2 in the Big Ten tournament. I think Rutgers, they're one of their players, one of their good players. I can't remember his name.
Guard
but
or something.
Yeah, one of their guards potentially is going to be out for Thursday, but it's Monday as we're recording this, so a lot can happen in 72 hours when it comes to injuries and all the advancements in technology and medicine that they have. Like, who knows what it'll be 3 days from now. So I think the thing that's so frustrating is you see the potential. You see when this team plays together. I mean, Doug McDaniel on Saturday night was awesome. I mean, awesome. He had like 7 points in the first few minutes. I mean, he had a deep 2 and a 3 immediately to start the scoring, and was like his shot, I don't know if anyone else notices, but I feel so confident when he puts the ball up now compared to 2 months ago. Like, his shot is almost kind of changed too. His form looks better.
His form looks better. The ball touches the moon and then comes back down. I love it. But like, I mean, I think for Doug McDaniel, I wasn't expecting him to be a shooter at all. I thought, honestly, he was more like Frankie Collins, even though he's small. It's like get to the rack type of guy. But if he can shoot, that changes everything for us, you know? And I thought Michigan, I wouldn't say it was like great basketball Saturday, but it felt like it was smooth basketball. We were getting the ball to everybody. It wasn't just feed Hunter Dickinson 100 times. It was like, we're moving the ball, we're in transition, and guess what? We're playing defense. Holy shit, what a concept.
Yeah, they had I think 5 or 6 guys get into double figures. They had a couple guys with, Cheddar had 7, Terrace had 8, and Jace was the only player who played that didn't score. They only went 8 deep. They only brought 3 guys off the bench. I'm not going to trash any college basketball players. I'm just saying this is something that I think needed to happen, unfortunately, because seems like a great kid, but they needed to shorten the bench and they needed to make a change in the starting lineup. This is the thing that gives me hope, because they didn't really have any possession. I mean, look, you're going to miss shots, you're going to turn the ball over, but there was no possession that really stuck out where I was like, wasted opportunity.
Yeah.
Right? Like, obviously you miss some shots, maybe take a bad shot, but it was never any glaring, egregious, bad decision type of play that sometimes was happening earlier in the season.
Or like what are we doing here? Like, that's what, how many times have you said that this year? Like, it's like, what was the plan there? I don't know what, usually it's like, all right, he made a dumb mistake, but you saw like what the possible plan was. There have been too many times this year where it's been like, I don't even know what they were trying to do. Saturday, it felt like we had a plan and we stuck to it and executed well. And so if, again, maybe they're a late season program under Juwan Howard, and we can see some things happen here. I wouldn't say I'm like incredibly confident there, but you never know. You never know. There's some opportunity. And the crazy thing is, I mean, the standings in the Big Ten are still outrageous. We have an opportunity to be like the 3rd or 4th team in the Big Ten after almost going 500 in the league.
It's wild, man. I do love, I mean, I feel like Hunter, I was saying this to, I think I was saying it to Patty when I was at OTF, man. I felt like as the season was kind of going on, I was getting more and more frustrated with Hunter and like watching him play. But this past game, I feel like I saw some improvements with him getting the ball at the top of the key, and he's making moves and he's getting to the rim. He's not just backing guys down anymore. He's getting the ball and he's making a move right away, which is something that I feel like is newer to see with this team right now. I feel like normally you see him catching it down to the post, wait for the double team, and then finally get a ball out. But to see him just make a move right away, and Cheddar had some nice moves down too in the post. I mean, see guys be able to do something in the paint is fucking awesome, and it just gives more room for shooters.
The one play where Hunter was at like the elbow, made one spin move and went. I was like,
and went up with his right.
Where did that come from? I was like, but honestly, here's where I was pretty pumped with Michigan is Hunter went 5 for 13 from the field. That's not a good game, but Michigan was able to do it in other spots. Usually when Hunter has a bad game, the team has a bad game. And so I was pretty pumped to see everyone else like step up, Doug included. I mean, Kobe is just an absolute dog. Can we talk about Kobe Buffkin?
You stole my thunder. Thank you.
I'm sorry. Go for it.
No. I just wanted to bring up Kobe. Had 17, second leading scorer for Michigan behind Doug, who had 18. The shot that he hit was ice cold. The kid he juggled it. Yeah. Continues to remind me of Jordan Poole, just with his ability to be a playmaker, get to the rim. Similar build, similar body type, similar play style, in my opinion. And I just think, man, we got a lot of time left this season. I mean, 4 games, and you've got the Big Ten tournament. Like, there's still, you got to win a lot of them, but there's still the opportunity, right? But it's hard not to think about a potential backcourt next year with those two, and you bring Llewellyn back as a veteran guard. Like, I think the things that have really frustrated me about Juwan Howard's coaching this season have been some of the minutes, some of the lineups, some of the lack of effort type of things. But even with the losses to Indiana and Wisconsin, I think those things have started to improve and have me excited about the potential for the 2023 season and beyond, just because of how the backcourt's playing and how they have improved. Right. Like, I think one of the things where I was like, man, it just seems very stagnant. No, they have gotten better. So I'll say hand up on that one. I think, they've proven me wrong a little bit. And yeah, I mean, they're spreading the wealth, right? Like, 5 guys in double figures, a couple guys, 7 and 8 points. Like, they played really well on Saturday, and it was really fun to watch. And it does give me a glimmer of hope that they can go and snag at least 2 of the next 4. I think you need to get 3, but if they can go 500 on those and then maybe win 2 or 3 in the Big Ten tournament, I don't know what Andy Katz is going to say, or any of the bracketologist guys. Not real jobs, by the way. I don't know what that's going to look like, but I think they're at least give themselves a puncher's chance come Selection Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy that I feel like I was actually talking to somebody today, and they were like, I feel like it's been 5 times now where we've lost a game and been like, all right, that's it. We're out of the tournament conversation. And then, like, we win 1 or 2, get ourselves back in. And I don't know. I do think Joe Lunardi's just putting us on his paper just to, like, get more clicks from thousands of Michigan fans. I think there is conspiracy theories in that. But, like, man, I don't know. If they can make a run, man, that would be fun to watch. I do think it's a little bit putting a Band-Aid on maybe some bigger issues with the program right now. And honestly, maybe Kobe doesn't need to be playing this well so that he doesn't play himself into a first-round draft pick.
He's already getting mocked there, by the way. I saw him at 28 by some sports writer from The Athletic.
That
was pre-MSU, by the way, too.
This is turning out to possibly be like worst-case scenario where we have 2 first-round picks and a former preseason All-American still don't make the tournament and they all leave.
That's tough, yeah.
I don't know. And honestly, that's where you start questioning some stuff. But you want to know, we want to know who we want to talk about moving forward? Terrace Reed.
Him and his big ass, according to Justin.
Love that ass, dude.
Hey, man. Pause, but I was listening to, I don't know why, but I was on my phone the last pod we did together, and like that was one of the first things I heard was like, you guys can say pause after this, but like Terrace Reed has a huge ass. I was like, oh, man, we can list it immediately on the pod.
Thick boy. Use that body.
Hey, man, 10 boards, 8 points. I thought he played phenomenal, was huge in the second half. He had the and one, and I think he made that free throw to tie it up or at least bring it within 1. I can't remember, but phenomenal game.
I would love to know, like, what is free – I'm sure I could look this up, but what's his free throw percentage over the past, like, 10 games? I don't know. It feels
it's got to be 70%.
Since Nebraska.
Yeah, like, since 60, he missed 70. A bunch in a row, and then I don't know what happened, if he's just been, shooting – 500 free throws at practice or something like that. But man, he's definitely picked it up. I just see a ton of potential in him, man. He definitely doesn't have like the moves and all that quite yet, but you can see how big he is and not being weird. Seriously, he is a large human being with a lot of raw talent.
In the month of February, 71.4% from the stripe.
Wow.
Beautiful. That's incredible.
Wow. I mean, we'll take that all day long, dude, from our big guy.
Yeah, but dude, like you said, man, he just seems so raw. He's got so much potential. He's so athletic. He can move well for a big guy. Like he's gonna be a monster.
Oh, defensively, he is a monster.
Yeah,
like he is. It's funny. I saw we talked about Michigan State fans on social media, but one of the things I did see from a Michigan State fan was like, they're like, you got to be shitting me that their backup is legit too. Like even whenever Hunter leaves, like we still got to deal with this guy at the 5, and once he has a full offseason of development. It's always tough to project centers nowadays because the NBA's game is so different than it was when I was kind of growing up. It kind of could be like, oh, well, that guy looks like he's probably like a top 10 pick. Like the dude from Kofi Coburn from Illinois, like 15 years ago, top 10 pick.
Oh, yeah.
Right. And so that's where I'm like with Terrace, it's like, does he have the ability to stretch the floor? So he may be a guy like Hunter who's, could potentially be in Ann Arbor for a few years, which would be awesome. But like projecting him out, definitely all Big Ten type guy. I think definitely a double average season in him for sure, which is awesome to kind of think about, to have, the big man of the future moving forward. I'm very excited for his development and growth.
What do we think about the Twin Towers lineup?
Keep it. I mean, it seems like the most efficient. Weirdly enough, it's like one of the most efficient lineups that they've had.
I mean, we tried it. It's like, I don't know. The only thing is, like, we've tried it for 2 years now with Musa and Hunter last year, and now and it's like, it's very spotty. But I do think, I mean, to your point, as of recent, it's been when they go best. And I just roll with what works. I don't know. I mean, at this point, you're kind of, at this point of the year with the season that they've had, you're kind of like grasping for whatever is working. And you almost don't ask questions like why it works, but just if it works, run with it.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know why it works. I really don't. You would think the spacing would be terrible and they get clogged up in the lane, but I don't know. It's like, I would love to see the numbers since they really started playing this rotation more heavily. Because I have to imagine it'd probably be one of the top 2 or 3 most efficient lineups, at least offensively. Defensively, I mean, Terrace is a game changer. Like, I may be getting ahead of myself, but I think Terrace might end up being a better defensive player at Michigan than Musa was.
I mean, we had a small dosage of Musa. So
I know it's not fair, right? Like for true freshman year, and he goes, but I mean. He in Terrace's limited time, he has very much made an impact on the defensive side of the ball on almost every possession, right? Like, I mean, you can't go near the rim without him impacting the shot. He definitely affects it. So I do love that. And, the other thing too, like Hunter doesn't have the leg strength to keep a guy out of the post. Terrace just doesn't let anybody back him down. So they're never inside the post. And so I think it's a very different way that you check, like you go up against Terrace than you would a Hunter. Yeah, he roams the paint and doesn't let guys back him down. And once he starts to learn how to stay out of foul trouble, I think we got something here. I really do. I think he's going to be I think he could be an all Big Ten caliber player moving forward.
Maybe he's like the spark plug of this last run.
He's the glue, man. Him and Joey Baker. And Joey Baker.
I do love Joey.
Gotta have a couple, guys that can shoot as your glue guys. I mean, Joey Baker is is a perfect glue guy, off the bench, white, shoots threes, doesn't really do much else, but it works. Honestly, though, I'm saying that facetiously. Like he started to have some really solid takes to the rim recently. Like,
dude, he drives.
He's
to the
been
rim
finishing pretty well. Yeah,
he finishes really well. Yeah, he can do. He's more than just a shooter.
Yeah, and I thought Cheddar
more of a Nick Stauskas type as opposed to
okay. Yeah.
All right.
I think Cheddar. Hey, Cheddar got abused in the first half defensively, but then I it wasn't as glaring in the second half. I haven't rewatched the game or anything like that, but I thought the moments that he had when he was able to go and get a finger roll layup, I think it was right before a TV timeout. He got the crowd was fired up. Like I thought he played really well outside of those first few minutes where Hauser was just taking his lunch money.
Yeah. But I also that's a tough matchup for Will Cheddar. Hauser can go inside and out. Cheddar is way too raw to be.
And he's a crafty veteran, right? Like, I know we joke about that kind of stuff, but there is something to. He's probably played over 100 college games in his career. Fifth-year guy, like, just knows what to do to get open and to be able to, make shots. Like, that's why you see those upsets happen in March, even with those guys that aren't as talented. They just have played a lot of basketball together, and sometimes that's what it takes is just that experience level.
Yep, absolutely. I also want to say too, from an MSU perspective, like, what do you do with Matty Sissoko? Like, just unbelievable athlete. Maybe should have played tight end.
Get in the tight end. Antonio Gates style.
I just don't know. Like, I've watched him over the years, and you're just like waiting for him to make that next step, and I just don't see it happening. And maybe it's in his 4th or 5th year or whatever, but like, man, they just don't have that big man that they used to have that is like dominant. Their guard play is good though. Tyson Walker's a stud. I think Akins is sweet.
Akins is nice. I like
Hogard is very good. I mean,
I love that Hogard's just like a little chunky dude that can like hoop. Like, it just gives me hope,
Is he the one who had a nasty yam in that game?
No, that was Akins.
Yeah. Okay.
Did you see actually Jet somebody said like what was the best play of the weekend? Yeah. And one of the options was Akins, and Jet retweeted it and said like Akins because it was on Jace.
Yeah,
it was a dunk on Jace.
That's awesome.
By the way, I really do, I hope I hope Jet is good with that ankle. That didn't look great.
Yeah, did anything come out from that? Any news?
I haven't.
They just rolled it real weird.
I've not heard anything on it. But we'll see. We'll see. So, hey man, a lot of opportunity. You're just, I think the same with Matty Sissoko. We've been waiting for this team to like put it all together and for multiple games in a row. And here's the opportunity. So tough stretch here, but like you got to nut up and go for it if you want it.
Yeah, I think you got to win the next two. Like, I think with Rutgers and some of the injuries they have right now, like, I know the RAC's a tough place to play, but so are both Assembly Halls, and that's what you finish with at Illinois, at Indiana. But the thing is Michigan hasn't played Illinois this year, so I don't know how they match up. I don't know how much of the Indiana-Illinois game you guys watched. Fantastic basketball game on Saturday. It was just awesome. I think it was only in the 60s, but it was like every shot was huge. Really fun game to watch. So both of those teams are really strong. They've been tested, so Michigan's going to have their work cut out. But I think if you can win the first two against Rutgers, got to get the one against Wisconsin at home. Should have had it in the Kohl Center, but you can't let that linger. You got to get it at home this Sunday coming up on the 26th, and then you got to split one of the last two.
Got to split them. That Wisconsin game is a super winnable game too.
100%.
To go back to your Indiana, Illinois, like, dude, college basketball this time of year is just so much fun.
Oh my God. The Oklahoma-Texas game was incredible. They went to overtime after I thought Texas was going to win, and then they hit a 3 for OU. And then in overtime, I was like, it was like 84-77. And then OU had a chance to take the lead with, the last shot. It missed and Texas won, but just awesome basketball right now. Like you said, I mean, the Michigan State game obviously was an awesome game. So this is, we're talking about missing football after our conversation with Max and talking through the boys in Shem. Like, this is some of the most fun times to be a sports fan is right now. And like from this stretch through like all the way to the finals for the NBA and NHL, like there's so many awesome events. You got the Masters and like March Madness, obviously. You just have so much going on. It is a lot of fun.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, this is a long one. Sorry for the rambling. If you made it through, I'm proud of you and we appreciate you. If you didn't, you're not a true fan. So, if you're not listening to this,
send all complaints to Brandon Justice on Twitter, please.
If you didn't make it this far, we don't like you. We don't like you. If you're not,
and they'll never know. They'll never know.
They'll never know. Think about the things we could say right now. If you're not listening, then you'll just never know. If you are listening, we love you. We appreciate you. For us, you can follow us at Blue by 90 on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, at Blue by 90 Podcast on YouTube, and blueby90.com. Go Blue.
Go Blue.
Go Blue. That was beautiful.